This feels like a really vulnerable video. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a little bookshelf tour, but it's going to be kind of unique, I think, because basically this is the extent of my bookshelf here. Almost a year ago I moved in with my husband, and he has many books, many bookshelves, but since I was moving I didn't want to bring that many with me. And also I have 3 sisters and we basically just shared all our books, so I didn't want to deprive them of their books either. But I thought it'd be fun to do a little tour of the books that I did decide to bring, because I think it can be pretty eye-opening about a person to see what books they decide to carry with them, basically. And just a note, I am a big fan of Harry Potter, but that's not here because my husband already had his whole series, so I can just read his. The shelf here does actually exclude a few other books that I have. Basically on another shelf I have like, I don't know, 10 or so books, which are just a mix of ones that didn't quite fit in with all of these ones, like just a couple of cookbooks, a couple of editing manuals because I am a trained editor, and a couple of other just random nonfiction or books that I haven't read yet, so that's why they're not on this shelf. But basically this is my whole collection here. And when I originally moved, it was before COVID started, so I thought that it'd be really easy to go and borrow any books that I wanted from my parents' house, but unfortunately that's not the case, so mostly I've just been relying on audiobooks on Audible now if I want a new book. But yeah, let's get into the actual tour of my books, and I'll explain why I chose each one to bring. This feels like a really vulnerable video, but I think that other people who do care about their books will understand, because again, the books you have and the books you carry with you do actually say a lot about you. And you'll see from this I am a bit of an eclectic reader. I have a few different genres all going on here, but I'll go through the books one by one and explain why I brought them, in no real particular order. So the first one is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. This is a book that I read for the first time only a couple of years ago, but I really enjoyed it. A lot of the books I brought are favorites from when I was younger, or they were part of my identity at some point. However, this is one of the ones that I read more recently, and I just straight up really enjoyed it. And I thought that my husband might want to read it too, so that's why that one came along with me. Plus I thought because it's so long, I couldn't really see my parents or sisters reading it anytime soon. So yeah, so that's my beat up old copy that I got at a book sale. Basically the only books of my own, like ones that I bought or received as a gift, that I didn't bring were ones that I just didn't really enjoy that much or don't feel the need to have in my collection anymore. But this is one that I'm very happy to continue having on my shelf, and I could definitely see reading it again at some point because it does have so much depth, but it's also a really easy, fun read. Next is Book of a Thousand Days by Shannon Hale. When I was a teenager, I was a huge fan of Shannon Hale. I still am, of course, like I still love all those books, and I will happily read any more books from her. But especially when I was a teen, she was still blogging a lot at that point, and I read her blog religiously and read her whole archive of blog posts as well. I was a fan to the point where I knew what day her birthday was, even without her announcing it. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book. Again, because I was moving, I didn't want to bring my whole collection of Shannon Hale. I do have all her books of Bayern as well, and a couple of others, but I decided to bring just this one because it was one of my favorites, and it's kind of my stand-in for my whole Shannon Hale collection. I really should reread this sometime soon. I really liked it. Alright, next one. Frankly in Love by David Yoon. And this one is another recent read. It came out in 2019, so I must have read it quite soon after it came out. And the cover is so fun because the letters are shiny. and raised a little bit. It's another book that I read recently that I just really enjoyed. I expected it to be a cute contemporary romance, which it is for about the first half, but then it ends up going a lot deeper into family issues and racism and cultural issues than I expected. It also doesn't follow the predictable tropes when it comes to contemporary YA romance. Also, another thing I am hoping to do much better with in the future is to diversify my bookshelf, because right now it is kind of troubling to see that I think all of the other authors are white, which is hugely imbalanced. The next book I have is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. I'm a big fan of Rainbow Rowell. I thought Eleanor and Park was so good, even though it definitely wasn't my favorite read just because of how dark it could become. But this is my favorite Rainbow Rowell book. I definitely related to it back when I was in university and wanted to be a writer. I was really inspired by Kath's dedication to writing. And also I love the whole romance element and, you know, the college life element. I tend to read books pretty slowly, but I think this is one of the few that I've read over the course of a weekend. I've also read the tie-in books about Simon Snow, and I really enjoyed those as well. And I actually ended up rereading this novel last year. Okay, so the next book is a special edition of The Little White Horse. And I think I read The Little White Horse for the first time when I was maybe 13. Could have been older, like 16, I don't remember. But I really loved it when I read it. What I really liked was obviously the magic system, and I loved horses when I was a kid. I mean, I still like horses, of course. So I just really liked how it all tied together. And this was a really nice special edition, and the book itself has this nice illustration on the front. Yeah, it made the story seem even more magical, that the book itself looked magical too. Alright, next is The Guinevere Deception. This one, again, is a recent read that I enjoyed a lot. I now have the sequel as well, actually, but it's beside my bed because it's my current read. So down here I just have the first one. But I did really enjoy this one, and I also loved the cover. So I was very happy to have this book on my shelf. Alright, next one is Cersei by Madeline Miller. Yet again, this is a more recent read. I think I got it in 2019. I actually studied classics in university, so I studied a lot of like ancient Greek and Latin, and also like mythology and culture of ancient Rome and ancient Greece. So it's pretty interesting to read a novel based on the Greek myths. Next is Again But Better by Christine Riccio. Christine is a booktuber. I'm sure you've all heard of her, Poland Bananas Books, and I love her YouTube channel, so as soon as she announced that this book was coming out, I knew I was going to get it, and I really enjoyed reading it, so that's one I definitely knew I had to bring with me when I moved. Alright, these next two are also by a YouTuber, Melanie Murphy. So I'll start with this one. This is actually a nonfiction book that she describes kind of like an advice book for teens. And it's called Fully Functioning Human Almost. I think it is very accessible for teens, but I think there's a lot in here that would resonate with people of many different ages. I've actually read this book twice, and I found it just as interesting the second time. So I would really recommend it to anyone who's interested in like lifestyle, beauty, mental health, relationships, lots of different stuff. And then the next one by Melanie Murphy is her first novel called If Only. I guess it's an adult contemporary novel. Again, I really enjoyed that, so I'm glad I brought both my Melanie Murphy books to the new place. And then this next bunch of books is all like writing advice or editing handbooks. So like I said, I do have some other editing books that I've kept on a separate shelf. Most of these are ones that I would refer to even as an author, not as an editor. So for example, we have Strunk and White's Elements of Style, which is just a pretty classic book talking about grammar and syntax. So that's a really helpful little handbook to have. So this one is The Subversive Copy Editor by Carol Fisher-Saller. It's about like approaches to copy editing and the kind of attitude you want to have. So I think it would actually be useful even to authors, you know, either if you're doing the editing yourself or if you're hiring someone else to do the editing. I think this would be great to kind of be more informed about the process. So this one is The Artful Edit on the Practice of Editing Yourself by Susan Bell. And again, this is great for authors who want to know more about how to edit their own writing. This one is called The Forest for the Trees, an editor's advice to writers. And it's by Betsy Lerner. And again, it's great for an author who wants to hear from an editor about what they can do to improve their own writing. I am an aspiring author, and so I like to have these books on hand for help with editing my own manuscripts, especially because right now I'm on the second draft of a novel. I need all the help I can get, basically. This one is Stephen King's memoir called On Writing. I read this one a while, like maybe 5 years ago. As far as I remember, it's more memoir and less craft, but I do remember really enjoying it, and I would recommend it to anyone who is interested in hearing more about Stephen King or just get inside the head of a writer. Alright, and then I have a few more books on this lower shelf here. So the first one is The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. I actually mentioned this book on Instagram recently, and I do post updates on Instagram about what I'm reading or my thoughts on certain books that I've read, so do follow me there. My Instagram name is intothewords_online, and I have it linked below as well. This book was another one I read maybe early last year. I think I was reading this during the time that I moved here, and I did end up really liking it. I don't read too much science fiction, but this one is such a classic. To me, it seemed like such a unique, innovative read, so I was very happy to keep this one here on my shelf. Alright, this one's maybe kind of a funny one. It's Biscuit, an American Legend by Laura Hillenbrand. When I was a kid, my sisters and I all loved Biscuit. Like I said, we loved horses, and especially race horses. We've seen the Biscuit movie a number of times. I actually found this book in a little lending library in front of a house in our neighborhood, and I really enjoyed reading it. So this one is here both because it's an interesting read, but also as a nod to a childhood interest. Next we have The Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy by Laini Taylor. And Laini Taylor is another author that I was a huge fan of when I was a teenager. I also read her blog religiously, read all the archives. Again, I'm still following her career. And so even though I've read this series enough times that I may not be rereading it anytime soon, I still knew that I had to bring it because it's just such a staple of like what I think of when I think of books that I love. Yeah, this is the first one, Daughter of Smoke and Bone. And then the second one, Days of Blood and Starlight. And the third one, Dreams of Gods and Monsters. I've read the first book multiple times, the second and third I think each only once. It's a very unique series, so I'll definitely have to reread the whole trilogy at some point. And then this is a companion novella, also by Laini Taylor, called Night of Cake and Puppets. It's about one of the secondary characters in the main trilogy, and this was just so cute. I love the illustrations by Laini Taylor's husband, Jim. Yeah, again, I knew I had to bring this one. And then my other Laini Taylor book is Lips Touch 3 Times, which is a collection of 3 novellas, or short stories, maybe. I must admit this isn't my favorite cover. Like, not that it's an ugly cover, but it's just nothing compared to the illustrated covers. In general, I do prefer illustrated covers, but I really enjoyed the stories, so that's another part of my Laini Taylor collection. This book is Sisters Red by Jackson Pierce. I think I was reading this one as well around the time that I moved here, which is probably why I brought it with me. But I do really love this book. I enjoyed it so much, and I actually want to reread the sequel to it, which is called Sweetly, because I think I liked that one even more. I just couldn't find it at the time that I was looking. And I specifically like this cover. They rebranded the series with different covers, which I don't like as much, so I'm hoping that I can find Sweetly with the matching cover. Lastly is this trilogy by Stephanie Perkins. So it starts with Anna and the French Kiss, which is such a cute love story. Sorry, we have so many sounds going on with the heating and everything. I really enjoyed the European location, of course, and Stephanie Perkins is just a master of writing young adult love stories. Like, I just think they're so good in each of the 3 books. So I have the first one, and then also the second one, Lola and the Boy Next Door. Again, very cute and such a fun read. And finally, Isla and the Happily Ever After. And I do kind of like this cover better than the first 2, but I'm actually not a cover purist. Yeah, if I could choose, I would choose to have all the covers in a series match, but I think I care more about wastefulness than I do about matching. So since I have these books already, I'm just gonna keep the first 2 in the different covers, and you know, if an opportunity ever arises, then I can replace them. But for now, I'm happy with my mismatched set. So that's all the books. It really doesn't seem like that many. Oh, they're falling on Elsa. It doesn't seem like that many, and of course there are way more books than this that I've loved or that I consider favorites. Maybe I'm kind of a strange book person, because I don't like the idea of spending money on a book if I don't have to. That's why I moved here, instead of like buying new copies of all the books that I loved but that I had left at my parents' house. I'm just gonna stick with this, and if I ever really want to borrow one, I'll just borrow one. So I know that might be a little strange. Oh, and I also like to utilize libraries. Again, during COVID, we can't, but what I've been doing is getting some audiobooks from the library. That's all digital, of course. Also, I've been trying to read more books from my husband's collection because he has a large collection of books. Anyway, so for now, this is what I have. I can definitely see in the future that I'll be expanding my collection. For now, I'm content with my little collection. This is all I need. And then, of course, I'm reading a lot of audiobooks on Audible as well. So I hope that was interesting to sort of see the little collection I've ended up with. Leave a comment down below letting me know what your book collection is like. Like, do you have a lot of books? Do you have a small collection like me right now? Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video.